Hello and welcome to the Stronghold Digital Mining Daily Update for Sunday, June 2nd, 2024. So, we've been scaling back these updates in light of the announcement that was made about a month ago, indicating that Stronghold Digital Mining is actively exploring strategic alternatives, right? Strategic options. There's no deadline as to when that review process has to be completed by. I suspect it's going to be an ongoing process, and I also suspect that the intention at the end of that process will be to ideally find a purchaser for some or all of Stronghold Digital Mining's assets. So that, I think, can be some very, very compelling good news for Stronghold Digital Mining, given the fact that the public markets have simply not, as the company stated, have simply not been valuing these assets, right, in a manner that's commensurate with the reality of what we've got, right? So I've been very strategically silent, or at least a bit more silent than usual, during this process so as not to inadvertently interfere with whatever's going on behind the scenes. I am cautiously optimistic that, from an operational perspective, that the application to be listed on the Puro exchange will take place at some point right this month, that will get a positive result to that application, right? That we will now then become transactable as it relates to the production of carbon credits. I think that's going to be very useful, especially if Stronghold is able to go into the forward market and sell those credits to one or more buyers, and then as time progresses, build out the project and basically deliver those credits then. I think that's a very compelling, relatively near-term thing for us to look forward to. I also think the result of this strategic alternative review process, right? I suspect that, imagine if you or I were buying the company, right? Buying it whole. We'd maybe want to potentially have a contingency that says, hey, you know what? Yeah, hey, we're interested in this, but it could be useful to see if, in fact, these carbon credits are going to be transactable. Because needless to say, if that's the case, it opens up a fairly significant source of revenue for Stronghold Digital Mining that is completely differentiated from Bitcoin mining. And speaking of Bitcoin mining, hash prices have not really been very useful lately. To the extent that's going to change, it will require one of two things. Either the Bitcoin network hash rate will have to shrink dramatically, which I don't think is going to happen, or alternatively, we need to see the price of Bitcoin probably double or so, right, to regain the type of hash prices that we saw towards the very end of Q1 2024, right? Which is, we had, as a company, Stronghold Digital Mining had a phenomenal quarter, as did many of the other publicly traded Bitcoin mining companies. So to get back into that modality, right, where a lot of useful revenue can be generated as a result of Bitcoin mining, because of the halving, we need to see Bitcoin prices double, more or less, or we'd need to see the network hash rate pretty much, cut in half to return to what we saw during Q1 2024. It is not lost upon me that when some observers talk about a Bitcoin halving being a very, very brutal process, they're not joking, right? Essentially your revenue is cut in half overnight as a result of the halving. So, hey, look, to the extent Stronghold Digital Mining is going to have a relatively constructive Q2 2024, I think that constructiveness will likely come more from any potential developments on the carbon capture front more so than as it relates to Bitcoin mining. I mean, absent like an explosion in the price of Bitcoin overnight, which would then suddenly, create hash prices that would, just immediately begin generating amazing revenue. So again, that's not just Stronghold Digital Mining. That's kind of in this waiting game as it relates to hash prices. It's the entire publicly traded Bitcoin mining ecosystem. So how have you been? I hope you've been doing well. I've been keeping busy, but as I said, I've been very, very strategic in not wanting to, push a lot of Stronghold Digital Mining centric content out there, just to allow some space and, for this strategic review process to take place, and to see what happens, right? I think we're all at this juncture kind of in a very somewhat frustrating waiting game, but I think also a very hopeful waiting game. Listen, at the end of the day, if nobody on planet Earth is interested in the assets which Stronghold Digital Mining owns and operates, then this company will have to continue marching forward as best it can, in this new environment, right, in which, hash prices are extremely depressed. And, you need to try to find the revenue from wherever you can. I did notice that sometimes grid prices will be quite favorable. And so needless to say, Stronghold Digital Mining will sell the electricity it's generating to the extent it is generating electricity at Scrubgrass and at Panther Creek. It will sell that electricity into the grid. Scrubgrass, as we might recall, right, was shut down strategically, right, and would presumably get turned back on as we head into the summer months. So to the extent that transition to turning Scrubgrass back on is going to happen, I think it'll probably happen sometime this month. Otherwise, I'm encouraged by everything that we've otherwise seen insofar as, what the company's attempting to do, right, to really maximize shareholder value. That is absolutely critical, right? I think we could all agree on that. That, hey, we just intuitively know our stock price should be dramatically higher than where it's at right now. But to the extent that's not going to happen as a result of the ordinary course of business, then you need to start reviewing some strategic alternatives, which the company is doing. And so I am, as I said, cautiously optimistic that we're going to see a reasonably good outcome from that. But to the extent we can't quite get to the finish line, we're back to just trying to maximize the value of these assets ourselves by operating the assets, right? The biggest risk at this juncture, right, is, hey, you sort of shut everything down in an effort to conserve liquidity. But in so doing, you potentially then create sort of like this doom loop of sorts, right? Where, hey, suddenly these plants are sitting idle, starting them back up. Maybe it's going to produce a whole bunch of issues that need to be repaired. Same thing with Bitcoin mining machines, generally speaking, to the extent, hey, look, if there's some profitability to be gleaned from running some of the more efficient machines, I suspect those machines will get run. It probably doesn't make sense, though, to just shut them down. Right? Because needless to say, if you want to, if you can generate a little bit of positive revenue, you want to try to do that. So listen, this is where we're at, and it's not lost upon me that we also have this $250 million universal shelf registration floating around out there. I guess staff attorneys at the SEC are reviewing that documentation. We may get word sometime this month that universal registration has been approved, which again, for the millionth time, does not mean Stronghold Digital Mining has to go into the market and raise $250 million. What it means is that the option exists for Stronghold to potentially raise a smaller portion of that, or even all of it, but right, a smaller portion of it, which can come from the sale of equity, the sale of warrants, and a whole slew of other financial instruments that are included in that universal shelf registration. So that's kind of hanging around out there as well. Otherwise, as I said, everything seems to be fine from what I can observe, aside from the fact that, hey, we're all kind of now just waiting. and wondering what is going to happen next. Okay, my friend, I hope you continue to do well to the extent you have been doing well. If things haven't been going so well, let's be cautiously optimistic that things will turn around for you. And as for Stronghold Digital Mining, I'm going to stay positive. I'm going to continue to try to be great. And we will hopefully see each other again when there's a bit more news to share. And absent there being more news to share, I will, as I'm doing today, just check in, see how things are going, and share some of my thoughts and perspectives. Okay, my friend, until we see each other again, take care.